All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us the truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquath. And listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Kwai. I'm back in here with another quick Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And the title I have is knowing when to abase, and there's times when you have to when to abound, right? So, what I'll start off by doing is I want to grab the etymology for these words, right? So these words I took, from the scripture in Philippians, and it's something that Paul talks about. And normally, sometimes, I guess when we think about the scripture, as well, sometimes it's like dealing with, okay, there are moments when you're going to have, you're going to be low in the sense of, okay, you might be going through something, and then there are going to be moments when, okay, the Lord just recently blessed you, so you're going to be abounding, you're going to be feeling kind of good, so that's the balance, right? But, I kind of wanted to touch on the sense of, the same kind of dynamic. However, okay, there are moments, when you might know a lot of things, and then you're just in a situation where you kind of have to abase yourself. And then there's still moments where, it requires you to speak. So essentially you kind of have to abound in the sense. Okay, so I got the word for abase in the etymology here. Okay, so abase, it means late 14th century, reduce in rank, diminish, make lower in value or status, lower oneself, bend, lean down, bring lower. It says low, short. Let's see if there's any more on this. So to pretty much, you kind of, I don't want to say the word decrease, but, to kind of like, just humble yourself, chill out. It's not my time. This isn't the situation that requires me to essentially, speak. Let me just, humble myself and listen, right? So, and then there are going to be situations like that, right? So what I want to do, I want to grab a couple of precepts in regards to this, and then I want to jump to the abound portion, right? The first one, and this is just kind of like, dealing with like, situations that you go through your day to day, right? Let's go to Sirach. Let's start off with that. This is Sirach 32, verse 9, and it says, if thou be among great men, make not thyself equal with them. And when ancient men are in place, use not many words. Right? So, there's a time, have we ever seen in the islands, there's a time and a place for everything. So say for example, you're around elders, you're around, I guess the apostles as well, people who have been, have a lot of experience and expertise, and they've been in the faith for quite a long time. Moments like that, you'll abase yourself, right? There's just this etiquette. You might I guess another thing is you'd ask questions about certain things that they've gone through and what they did and so on and so forth to get counsel, right? I guess other situations probably even include sometimes too, even in the world, sometimes you kind of have to, I don't want to say abase yourself, but, kind of remain in a humble mindset. So, for example, like dealing with the people who are in positions of authority over you, right? So it could be, for example, parents. It could be, for example, managers, right? Because you're not going to try and be difficult, and try and argue with a manager at a workplace, right? You're just going to make your situation a lot worse, right? So in those situations, it requires you to essentially kind of abase yourself, right? Not all the time you're going to be, speaking with authority, right? And that's something I want to get later on. So, as a matter of fact, let me get the precept. I think it's Philippians 4. Philippians 4 and 12, and it says, I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. And everywhere in all things I'm instructed to both be full and be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Right? So, there are moments, you're going to be doing good, and there are moments where, you're going to be kind of like you have to lower yourself, right? But, also moments in the sense of even like, sometimes when we think about this precept, it can be, it could be also be like financially, or you might be just be going through, a situation, right? And, you kind of, it kind of forces you to lower yourself. It's, essentially, right? That's what, going through hell does anyway, right? And then there are moments when the Lord might just bless you, you might, I guess, for example, you get a new job, or you might, for example, you might, I don't know, meet a new woman or something like that, things of that nature, and then then you're kind of abounding essentially, right? So, but there are moments, it's balance, right? Because we know the Lord, He always deals with balance. He creates the light and forms darkness. Peace and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So roughly paraphrase, right? The Lord is a balanced power, right? And that's a lot of thing. That is something a lot of our people don't understand, right? So, because we understand that, we know how Heavenly Father works, right? And I just want to get another account actually. Let me go to. Just bear with me on this. That is. Okay, this is 1 Samuel chapter 26. I'll start at verse 4 and read down. So just bear with me. So the title here, it says Saul pursues David. And it says, And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, captain of his host. Saul lay in a trench, and the people pitched round about him. Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David and Abishai came to the people at night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping with the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, Yahweh Bashmel hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear even to the earth, and once I will not smite him the second time. Then David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can touch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, as the Lord Yahweh Bashmel liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day will come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I shall stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is in his bolster, and the cruse of water, and let us go. So David took the spear out of the cruse and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away, and no man saw it or knew it, neither awaked, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord fell upon them. All right, so, in this account, essentially, David has the opportunity to enact his revenge on Saul, because if you go back earlier within the last few chapters, Saul starts to behave extremely carnal towards David, and there was an account where he took javelins and he threw javelins at David, but David actually had dodged them. But the point really is, David had the opportunity to essentially abound, but it wouldn't be right if he had taken that opportunity to enact vengeance upon Saul, because he understood that Saul, he was the Lord's anointed, right? He was essentially, he wasn't going to put forth his hand upon the king. He was very, very spiritual in this chapter. All right, and he actually maintains a level of integrity, because he doesn't want to essentially enact it and take vengeance into his own hands, right? So that is a moment, David kind of had to essentially abase himself. He didn't he didn't want to take that vengeance into his own hands, right, and recompense and take his and try and get his own satisfaction, right? Because he understood that, because Saul is the Lord's anointed. Saul essentially, he's still, at this time, he's still the king, right? This is before his death, right? So he understood that, he's not gonna trying to assert authority and challenge the king, so to speak, right? He understood that, despite what Saul was doing, right? So he's still essentially in the physical sense, Saul is really the head, right? But in the spiritual sense, David really is the head, right? Because he was up to be and becoming the next king, so to speak, right? But you see a moment where he's having a tussle and a back and forth with the king, but he doesn't, he realizes, okay, let me not touch the Lord's anointed. That's his mindset. That's his that's the mindset he wants to continue to do, right? So that's kind of the point, really, because you'd have people who are, I guess, over you in the physical, but you are over them in the spiritual sense. And I use for example, parents as an example as well, like, or, or even when you go to work, you have people that are physically okay. Yes, they're appointed and they're over you, in those positions, but in the spirit, you are over them, but you still conduct yourself, in a very lowly, abased fashion. You don't actually try to, bring up precepts and try and cut them and all that kind of stuff. You just remain peaceably and you do what you got to do, right? Especially with parents too. That's a tough one too, because with parents, because they, through the Spirit of the Lord, obviously, they birthed you, their union came together and they raised you and so on and so forth. And, essentially, you wake up to this understanding and you know more than them, right? So that's hard, for them to kind of like stomach that, because, you're probably teaching them something that they have never heard of before, but there are moments when you have to abase yourself around them, right? They might need you to help you. They might need your help to do something, so to speak, if you have that type of relationship, that is, right? So hopefully, that kind of pieces together and makes sense, right? Okay, so what I'll do, I'm gonna go to Abound. What chapter is that? That's Luke. I'm gonna get that account. Just bear with me. Abound. All right, so let's go. So this is abound in the etymology. It says, be in great plenty, to abound, be abundant, come together in great numbers, overflow, run over. It says, rise in a wave. It says, what else does it say? One who has plenty or is wealthy, right? Right? The scriptures say that, let the words of Amashiach Yahushai deal with being you richly, and dwelleth in you richly, to roughly paraphrase, right? So there are moments when we're gonna be abounding, right? So, like, for example, when we speak on the street, we're in that spirit of abounding, sharing the riches and sharing the understanding that we have, right? With our people, So scriptures say that wisdom cried without. She uttered her voice in the chief places of concourse, right? So that's where you'll find all this riches, right? It's not in these schools and universities that a lot of people like to attend and think that they have some type of education, right? So, so what I want to do, I just want to get this account here. Let's see, where is it? Let's go to Luke. Just bear with me on this. Okay, this is Luke chapter 2, verse okay, I'll start at verse 43 and read down. It says, and when they had fulfilled the days as they returned, the child Yahushai tarried behind them in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing to him to have been in the company, went a day's journey. They sought him among their kinfolk and acquaintance, and they found him not, and turned back to Jerusalem seeking him. And it came to pass after 3 days, they found him in the temple in the midst of doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said, Son, why hast thou dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, Yahushua speaking, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not know that I must be about my father's business? Right? And it says, and they understood not the saying which he spake unto them. Another point really is in verse 46, when he was in the midst of the doctors, and he was confounding them with his understanding and with his answers, because, that's kind of the spirit. When you think about it, we come in, especially when we teach, on the street, because we're confounding a lot of these people who have a so-called education in this world. We're in the midst of different people, who have understanding in regards to, these so-called, scientists, these politicians, because the Lord really truly deals, with the base things of the world. As a matter of fact, let me get that. That's in, what's that, Corinthians? Bear with me on this. Okay, this is 1 Corinthians 1, verse 26, and it says, For ye see your calling, brethren, that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called, but Yahweh hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and Yahweh hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. So we represent essentially the poor things of this world, the things that are not well sought after, but, because, the Lord has opened up his secrets unto his servants, the prophets, and opened us his understanding to prophecies and, dark sayings and parables and all these different, levels of understanding, because, the Lord deals with the lowly, right? It's not, you won't find these dark sayings and parables and prophecies being spoken amongst, the upper echelon of our people, like, your Jay-Z's and your Beyoncé's and so on and so forth, right? Verse 28, and it says, And the base things of the world which are despised hath Yahweh chosen, yea, the things which are not, to bring to naught the things that are. Right? So that's just the way, the Lord chooses. He just deals with the lowly things. Right? So those are mostly going to be most of your moments where you're going to be abounding, right? Or even speaking to somebody, with discretion, of course, depending on how their spirit responds to the answers you give them, you will, those are the moments you're going to be abounding, so to speak, right? So, that pretty much is the lesson. I don't want to make the lesson too long, but I sincerely hope that it was, somewhat edifying. And there's a level of, I guess, discernment that is required, right? You just kind of spiritually have to read the room, so to speak, of what type of environment you're in. So you know when to, kind of crouch down, chill out, or, somebody might ask you a question, right? So, and then you stand up and you give an answer, right? So anyways, hopefully this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.